Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NFL veteran and Super Bowl champion, Will Blackmon.
Manning from the end zone. He throws, and a deflect away, and it is picked off by Will Blackmon, the former Giant.
Tim Dwight watches it hit, bounces, picks it up at the 10, slips a defender, fumbles the football. It's up for grabs. It's covered in the end zone by Will Blackmon for a Green Bay touchdown.
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Rick Bucher.
Rick Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Blackmon, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends on the United WeCast Network. I'm Rick Bucher. He is NFL vet and Super Bowl champ Will Blackmon. You can catch him usually on NFL Game Day Live Sundays on NFL Network and on Twitter always at Will Blackmon. You can see my stuff on Bleacher Report and at Rick Bucher on Twitter, and you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. All right, so we had what I think was not overall a very exciting weekend of playoff football. Now, as a former player, I'm sure you may take some exception to that categorization, but from what I expected, Will, it was not as riveting as I hoped it would be. You know, other than the Saints-Eagles game, and we're going to get to all four, the other ones weren't nearly as competitive as I hoped that they would be. Do you concur, or are you like, see, that's the typical, don't appreciate how hard it is to do what we do, or in your case, what you did.
I'm never like that. You kidding me?
Okay. Well, in that case, but you laughed when I put it that way. Were you entertained? Were you intrigued? Were the games as competitive as you expected them to be? I'll just put it out like that.
No, they were a letdown because we were teased. You know, we had all these teams in the playoffs while the top seeds were resting on their thrones, just waiting in the weeds watching. And, you know, we saw an impressive win by the Colts, an impressive win by the Eagles, you know, the Cowboys, and also the Chargers. They all put up really, really impressive wins. And then they go and play their, you know, respective opponents, and they get beat down. Yeah. You know, but I think it's cool that the best teams are the best teams, you know, and they are where they are.
Do you have any doubt that the four teams that are moving forward are the four teams that should be moving forward? If there's any one of these, any one of the four losing teams that you think, you know what, on another Sunday, they could have easily been the better team.
No, these top four teams, they've been the best four teams all year. They're rightfully so. I know people are looking at, the Patriots, this and that. It's funny, Tom Brady said, people look at us like we suck. Like he said that after one of his interviews. But imagine being the Patriots, where for the past however many years, the target is on your back every single year. And it's the same quarterback, it's the same coach. So just imagine in the offseason how much people are studying what you guys do, how much people are investing their time in trying to figure you out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're going to have hiccups. You're not going to go undefeated. You're going to have issues. You're going to struggle a little bit, but they still figure it out. So that's why we do have the best four teams right now in the playoffs.
That was the early game on Sunday, and we will get to that. But I'm going to go in chronological order. I want to start with the Colts and the Chiefs. Obviously, the Chiefs getting out early on the Colts, and it felt as if that's not the way that this could be played. And the Colts actually got a special teams touchdown that kept them within shouting distance. We've talked a lot about the Chiefs' defense, and that was, I believe, the concern going into this game. And yet, to me, they were really the most dominating influence. I thought the Colts defense did enough for the Colts to win if their offense had functioned the way we had seen them previously.
No, I agree. That's why it's any given Sunday. The cool thing about the NFL is everyone in the NFL is a professional football player. It depends on if someone has reached their potential or not, if someone is able to maximize their abilities or not. And it just so happens that on Saturday with the Chiefs, that front seven got after the Colts. You see Chris Jones, D Ford, all those guys, Justin Houston just bull rushing and throwing the Colts offensive line all over the place, which is something you didn't think was going to happen just because of how well they played all year. And there was one part in the game where I saw Quentin Nelson help up one of the Chiefs defenders.
Yes.
And when I saw that, I was like, oh, dude, this game is over.
Yeah.
They lost their edge.
Yeah.
Because he's known for that famous play when he took out Barry Church. You know, he's growling and took him out, but he's out here helping guys up. And it was dead weight, too. The Chiefs player wasn't even giving him any help. It was dead weight, and he helped him up. So they did a great job with that. The secondary did a great job also. But you said it, you nailed it right on the head. I feel like the Colts defense did enough to keep them in the game. It's just the Colts offense. Andrew Luck I think he was just under 50%.
Yeah. The one thing that I was surprised by is the fact that Pat Mahomes was able to draw their defense off in critical situations with his hard count. And for a quarterback that young, it surprised me. You expect Mahomes to beat you in a lot of ways, not with an old vet cagey, I'm going to screw you up with my count. And yet he managed to do that. I mean, they had false starts or encroachment or whatever it was. They had those line penalties at the worst, absolute worst time. It felt as if the Colts shot themselves in the foot several times when it came to that, and that they would do it against a young quarterback, or that a young quarterback would be able to do that to them, was the surprising part for me.
Pat Mahomes, he reminds me of Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson came in and took over a team very young and immediately just became an instant leader over there. His maturity for being so young, just the way he carries himself, the way he prepares, the way he performs, and the way he's not rattled and bothered by anything. He's not rattled by the limelight. He's not distracted by anything. And he goes out every week and he's just on his game, prepared, and competes. It's very, very, very similar to that.
Yeah. What did you, and I don't want to make too much of this, but if there was one thing I noted about Andrew Luck, and we talked a lot about his...
In a year, too, Russell won the Super Bowl, just saying.
What are you saying? How far are you taking that comparison?
We will see.
Okay, we'll save that for tomorrow's podcast. No, with Luck, we've talked a lot about his arm strength, about what he can do and what he can't do. If there was one thing that struck me watching the game yesterday, it was he was throwing great touch passes. His location and his accuracy is there. There were times where I felt as if he needed to zip it, and he didn't. He put some air under it that either resulted in an incompletion or a difficult catch at best. And it made me wonder, is he doing that because of the conditions? Because he knows that, I can't be drilling it because they're not going to be able to handle it? Or did you think, is that shoulder 100%?
So what Andrew Luck reminded me of, first of all, he was throwing on Saturday like we thought he was going to be throwing at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. But what this reminded me of, so Andrew Luck was, on fire all year, MVP candidate, of course. So you remember the movie Rookie of the Year, when the kid hurt his arm and he was zipping it, and then in one game he actually fell and re-injured his shoulder, his elbow, and then he lost all of his zip. Mm-hmm. That's what it kind of reminded me of. Is all year Andrew Luck was firing that ball, and then like you made a great point. For some reason, it just didn't look like he was putting a lot of heat on the ball. Now maybe he was. It just so happens that the guy across from him, Pat Mahomes, was really slinging it. In comparison.
But I know
there were some throws, right, that you're like, man, I'm surprised he didn't put more heat on it.
Right. And I look at the trajectory. It wasn't. There was always an arc on some of them. On some of them where I thought they needed to be on a clothesline, and it made me wonder, what was it that the front line was doing? Because we were impressed with their offensive line all year long, especially when it came to, if I'm not mistaken, I'm thinking of the Colts defense. Their run defense was impressive, but they couldn't run the ball, which made them very one-dimensional. And that offensive line wasn't as protective as it has been for the better part of the year. Was there anything schematically? What did you see that you thought that the Chiefs presented to the Colts that they maybe hadn't seen, or that was a new wrinkle?
All I know is it's a fact that in the playoffs, it's a whole different ballgame. It really is. There's a lot of stats and things we can talk about during the season where we can kind of predict what may happen.
Yeah,
but it's not like that in the playoffs. It's an entirely new season. When I was on the Giants in 2011 and we happened to win the NFC East and get into the playoffs with a 9-7 record, I know no one picked us, not even close. And when we played Atlanta, the first game, the wild card weekend, we beat them. I think it was like 27-2, 27-9, and just thrashed them, beat them. I mean, they weren't even the same. I didn't even recognize the Atlanta team. We just took their will and threw them out the way. Go to Green Bay. They already beat us that year. We go out there in the cold, same thing, beat them there. And then we play San Fran, who just beat a really good Saints team in San Fran. And we go out there to San Fran and beat them too. That was a hard-fought match. I mean, they had a couple of explosive plays in the beginning to Vernon Davis. But it's just a different ballgame. So that's why the best teams are the ones right now going to the conference championships. And so I feel like with the Chiefs, they were, one of the best teams all year. And I think they just took this week off. I'm sure the week before, and self-studied themselves and looked at the things that they need to do. And I'm 100% sure that the D-line was like, you know what? We're hearing all this talk about the Colts offensive line that we just need to take it to him because these dudes are human. So let's just take it to him. And I'm sure they just really put their pedal to the metal and took it to them. And it worked because that's what you have to do. You can't just, it's like we talked about earlier when I was like, Odell and Antonio Brown, some of those guys, they win just by showing up because of who they are.
Right.
Same thing. We heard about the Colts all year. They heard about how they haven't given up any sacks, whatever. I know they were over it.
All right. The second game on Saturday was the Rams hosting the Cowboys. Rams end up winning 30-22. It got a little interesting there at the end. Felt like it wasn't. Actually, I want to say, I gotta remind myself. It's funny. Like 2 games ago, and I got to remind myself of exactly how that game started. But
that's what I'm here for.
First quarter, it looks like, hey, Cowboys, maybe they got something here. And then the Rams kind of get it together second quarter, and they're up 22-7 at the half. And it felt like, okay, the Cowboys can't compete if it's going to be this kind of a scoring game. And yet they had the opportunity. And I think there was a 4th and 1 where they went with the Zeke. It seemed like just a sort of a power run. And meanwhile, you got all kinds of creativity on the other side with Sean McVay when they faced the same situation. And I just wonder, how much do you credit the personnel or how much do you credit the creativity of the coaching staff? Because immediately everybody's going to go to Sean McVay's a genius, Jason Garrett, the criticism of the offense not being creative enough has long been there. But I don't want to just jump to the knee-jerk reaction. When you look at that game, did you feel like, personnel aside, there were things the Cowboys could have done that would have kept the Rams more off balance than what they did?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in a situation where, okay, we're not so comfortable with the scheme, but at the end of the day, you still have to line up. At the end of the day, football is still about blocking and tackling. That's it. And Sean McVay, he didn't do anything super creative. He actually, what Sean McVay did that was really cool is he just kind of kept it simple. Everyone knows that he's great for creating matchups and getting guys open, having these cool plays here and there. But all he did, he just ran power up the middle and like jet sweeps to the receivers and just kept alternating with Gurley and C.J. Anderson. That's all he's been doing.
By the way, you tweeted out that you still don't understand how jet sweeps work in the NFL, why they work in the NFL. What? Just because they're so basic and obvious, or what is it where you go, well, I can't believe that defenses haven't figured this out?
Well, it's funny because I remember coming into the league, they were like, hey, they can try to run these college plays. They can do these, speed sweeps or this, that, and the third. But the guys in the NFL are too good for that now. They're too fast. They're way too smart, and they're way more disciplined with that. That's not going to work. So it makes me think, our offense is getting smarter or defense is getting dumber. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, dude, you can anticipate that. I had a discussion with Lorenzo Alexander on Twitter about it. He was like, well, it's a flying 40. The guy's coming 100 miles an hour. I go, yeah, if you see the dude flying in motion, you have to set the edge.
Yeah.
This year, I've seen a lot of defenders not setting the edge. At least let them cut it back inside. They're making it all the way to the boundary.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
It looks to me as if they're playing, anticipating there's something else coming. Like it's almost too obvious. It's too obvious that they're going to go wide. Like I got to stay here thinking it's going to come back.
Oh, speaking of, I just got a text from Sean.
Sean
McVay.
Oh. Was he congratulating you on the podcast?
No, he was just. I asked him about LaFleur. Like, does he have anything cool to say about him? The fact that he got the job in Green Bay. He said he's a great communicator, extremely smart, and very detail oriented. Matt LaFleur. There's your shout out.
There you go. Now, what is it? How do you feel about? When we're kind of skipping sideways, but when Sean McVay texts one of the co-hosts in the middle of the show, then we're going to skip sideways. What is your take on LaFleur and that hire? Because you and I haven't talked about it.
We haven't talked about it. I think it's cool. I think he's been around. He's been around enough football where he'll figure it out. Once again, these teams they interview these guys, so they saw something and heard something that they liked, that moved them, that made them was like, you know what, this might be the fresh start. This might be the fresh face we need to get going. So I have no issues with it. I'm not mad at any of these hires. People are up in arms about all these young coaches. Well, it's like, hey, you know what's funny is all these. It's interesting now. All the old head coaches aren't getting jobs. It used to be the veteran players had issues getting jobs. Now it's the veteran coaches.
Yeah. Ezekiel Elliott, 20 carries, 47 yards. Dak Prescott was 20 for 32, 260 yards, a TD. What do you make of the usage of Elliott?
I think he was, used as needed. The Rams knew exactly what they had to do. They had to just eliminate Zeke, make sure he didn't get off, because what happens is if he's performing really well, then they're going to have issues. So they did a great job just nullifying that and then truly putting it on Dak. And actually, it was cool that they did put on Dak because Dak was playing pretty well and almost kind of brought them back. But yeah, what I was saying, though, is it can come down to scheme, but at the end of the day, you still have to line up.
Yeah,
you still have to go out there. If we're out there, I remember we were playing the Cowboys when I was on the Redskins, and our coordinator at the time was Joe Barry, and he's now on the Rams. He just kept calling cover 0, 0, 0, 0, and we kept going back to the huddle, looking at each other like, dude, this dude is killing us. We're like, hey, we got to line up. Just line up and make it work.
Yeah.
We may not agree. Some guys will be like, oh, man, we don't like this call. So then you already defeat yourself by saying we're not going to, play up to it because we don't like the call. Well, make the call work. And Sean didn't do anything out of the ordinary. He literally ran the ball down Dallas's throat. Now, that was surprising, the fact that he did that, because Dallas is the top 10 defense. But what is interesting is, though, there was a rotation at linebacker with Sean Lee and Vander Esch. That's kind of where I was confused, or if I was going to question anything, it was that. Now, was that a rotation was that Chris Richard's decision, or was that from up top due to loyalty with Sean Lee? I don't know.
Right.
But it's hard because if you're rotating like that, it's extremely difficult to get into a rhythm. There were some times even Vander Esch was moved outside, and that's not his position.
Do you care that Linehan didn't meet or talk to the media afterward, and Richard did, and Richard basically said, hey, we weren't good enough, we needed to be better? I don't know how much any of that, more so, do you care, and does the locker room care? Does anybody, and the media will make a big deal of that, and I raise it because I saw it pointed out, but I don't know in the big scheme of things how much it matters.
It does matter, because if you don't want whatever happened, go to the podium and talk about it. They're actually on us about it as players. Like, you get up there and talk about it. You can't be like, oh, I don't want to go. If you don't talk to the media, I think we get fined or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But just go up there and face it and just say what it is. Say what happened. Speak your mind. People want to see that. And it may help you. You know, I love the fact that you take the Super Bowl loss and you look when the Panthers lost, and you look at how Cam handled it. And then you look at the Super Bowl loss when Russell threw the interception, how he handled it.
Right.
Russell threw the interception to lose the game,
right,
and he got up there with great composure and handled it. And same thing when they lost the game in the playoffs, he went up there and handled it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there was one play, and this doesn't have to do with the post game, but I found this interesting with Andrew Luck, because for all that he's been through, for all that they've been through, they had the interception that gave them the ball back, and then he fumbled right after. Well, it was Darius Leonard recovered the fumble for the Colts,
right?
And then Luck, a play or two later, drops back, gets hit, fumbles the ball, recovery, and Luck stayed. He ended up face down on the field, and he laid there for a couple seconds, just face down. And it was as if, like, he knew that he needed to deliver something special for this team to be able to get it done, and he just seemed incapable of doing it. Obviously, this is me utilizing my degree from Body Language University, but nonetheless, like, those are the times when I see somebody on the field that I consider a leader, and they look defeated at any point. It's one of the things that I admire about Phillip Rivers. No matter what it is, he's like, screw it. We're still in it. We're still going to come back. We're still going to figure this out. Drew Brees, I give him the same credit. I think Tom Brady, the top guys, I look across, and it doesn't even have to be a quarterback, all sorts of players on the field display it in various ways. I was shocked to see that with Andrew in that situation. It was like, it was that momentary thing, but the game wasn't over, and yet his just laying there face down was to me signaling, I can't do.
Yeah, he was defeated. He was defeated. But once again, he looked defeated on the field. But then if you look at his post game interview, the dude is smiling.
Yeah.
You know, and it was an incredible season. He's grateful for what happened. It was a hard loss, and he took it hard.
Yep.
You know, but he's smiling and he's talking. He's being professional, and just you're handling it. You know, and that's what you want. So it'd be interesting. I don't know. Chris Broussard spoke. Maybe he might get a promotion in Dallas. Who knows?
You know, the one other thing that I saw was, or when we all saw it, was Adam Vinatieri at Father Time. I don't know if you say Father Time suddenly tapped him on the shoulder, or I know beforehand Vinatieri talked to some people there and was really concerned about the wind. Not strength of wind, but the way it was swirling. He was thinking about having to adjust and accommodate it. Missed a chippy field goal for him, hit the upright on an extra point. Completely not a Vinatieri performance. And obviously with him being in his 40s, it raises the question. What did you see? Is that just a bad day for a really good kicker?
That was a bad day for him. That was a bad day for him. That's all I see it. Yep. Bad day. Maybe he psyched himself out, but that was a bad day for him.
Yeah. It was a bad time to have a bad day.
It was a bad time to have a bad day.
Because and the timing, like you missed that chippy field goal like right before the half. He hits that. It's a completely... You have a completely different feeling going into the locker room at halftime, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. He can still go, but we'll see. Maybe he won't. What do you think? You think he'll come back?
That's a good question, because as I see it, here's the conflict in his mind. I don't want to go out like that.
I don't want to go out like that.
I don't want that to be my last game. And at the same time, you get to a certain point where, and you know this, I've talked to any number of players, it's not that they can't play anymore. Do I want to go through the grind that's required to continue to play at that age when you have your family?
Grind?
What? Are you talking about? Are you making fun of kickers now? You're making fun of kickers.
What grind?
The mental grind. And being away from your family at a time where now your kids are growing and you're in your 40s and they're not excited that dad's playing in the NFL. They're like, Dad, when are you going to be hanging out with us?
He probably does already. He doesn't go to practice.
I will say it is a little bit different. It is a little bit different for NFL guys. You're not away from your families the way like Major League Baseball or NBA. Their seasons and their travel, they're gone a lot. They miss a lot. Not quite the same for NFL players.
I mean, in my case, there were some times I didn't live where I played.
Right. Right.
So there's a situation like that. But I hear you on that for sure.
Yeah. All right. New England smacked the snot out of the Chargers. When it was 14-0 and they were just rolling, I thought, wow, I had hoped that this was going to be a game, and it's not a game. Help me understand why a defense that I thought was that good not only did not look ready to start the game, but I wanted to see, can they get to halftime and make some adjustments and maybe make a game of it? Well, it was 35-7 at the half. It was too late. Help me understand why the Patriots.
You help me understand.
Okay.
Listen, it's just the Patriots, man. They just.
I hate the Patriots. I hate the Patriots because they're so good.
They just figure you out. That's what it is.
Yeah. It's funny because when we were looking at it, we looked at what the Chargers did and the Chargers on the road and all that. Like I talked myself into thinking, okay, and maybe it was the narrative. We
were prisoners of the moment. We were prisoners of the moment. I was too, because I'm like, man, this Chargers team is ready. It's Phillips' time.
Yes.
And then they go to Foxborough and they just get deflated.
And in hindsight, I was thinking, okay, wait a minute. It's Bill Belichick versus Anthony Lynn. I'm looking at Phillip Rivers versus Tom Brady. Bill Belichick is going to figure out. I think it's very simple.
That's a good point. We looked at Tom Brady versus Phillip Rivers. We did not look at Belichick versus Anthony Lynn. And that right there, if we looked at it like that, that is a beatdown.
And Bill Belichick with 2 weeks to get ready for Anthony Lynn.
Well, he didn't know who he was playing.
Well, but you can sort of.
They watch both teams. Yeah,
exactly. You can kind of put some things in place. If we're going to go this way, it's not. Say it's a week and a half. Nonetheless, you're rested. You get to dissect both teams, figure out. And I think this is the heart of what Belichick does, which is why he doesn't play. You never know how much you're going to play or what your role in the system is going to be or on any given Sunday, because he looks at what's your weakness. What's the thing that you don't do well, and how can we exploit that? And that's where his game plan starts, and that's where his whole focus is. And he doesn't pay attention to anything else.
Same thing. It's in the playoffs. It's always finesse versus power. Power always wins. It will always win. And you look at lots of finesse, lots of speed, lots of dynamic skills on the Chargers defense. Let's just run it right down their throat and make them boys work. Let's make them work. They want to go multiple DBs. Let's make them come downhill and have to tackle every single play. And guess what? We have 3 running backs. We have Burkhead, we have James White, we have Sony Michel. We're going to keep rotating them. We're going to make you work. And once you get tired, we're going to go play action, and we're going to throw. If you want to give us 6 yards, we'll take 6 yards. We'll take 6 yards a pop.
Yep.
No problem. And guess what? We're in the red zone. You're going to be tired again. No one's covering Philip Dorsett, who runs a 4-2. We'll send him on a deep corner route. You want more? We're going to send Gronk on a seam route, an over route. I mean, it's whatever they want. And then guess what? We'll put Cordell Patterson back there at running back.
Julian Edelman in particular was really effective. 9 catches, 151 yards, targeted 13 times. James White, 15 receptions, 97 yards, targeted 17 times. I mean, those guys carried the load. It just seemed like Edelman, every time they needed something early on, he really set. And not only was making the catch, but then was getting extra yards.
Right, run after the catch. That's what's big for this team. They have a lot of guys who excel run after the catch.
Yep.
And that's what they did all night. And then once again with Sonny Michel running between the tackles, yards after contact.
Yep. Sony Michel with 24 carries, 129 yards, 3 TDs.
3 TDs. So they did whatever they wanted today. And then shout out to the defense. I mean, yeah, the Chargers scored lots of points late, but for the most part, they only had 7 points.
Yeah. I assume that Melvin Gordon wasn't Melvin Gordon. 9 carries, 15 yards. He did have a TD, but I mean, they had 19 total yards rushing.
Well,
19.
I mean, a lot of that had to do with because they were behind early.
Well, also true. Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
So.
But they also, I mean, honestly, Phillip Rivers, 331 yards. You can say, okay, it's 300 plus, 3 TDs, an interception, but it wasn't.
That doesn't tell the story.
Yeah. The yardage doesn't tell the story because he got the yardage late.
Right.
Is there anything in particular that you look at and you think this was why the Patriots? Because I think if we had questions about the Patriots, it was their defense being able to do this against a Chargers offense that looked pretty high-powered the better part of the year. Was there something in particular you thought they did that was the kryptonite for the Chargers?
I don't think there's anything in particular. They just have a well-seasoned, a very smart group, and they're well coached. They have a game plan. I mean, obviously, probably the greatest game plan master in maybe all of sports. They put a game plan together and they stick to the script.
Yeah.
That's it. There was one time where, Gilmore jumped a dig. Keenan Allen does run a lot of deep digs, and that was wide open. That was the one that they gave up. But for the most part, they have a really smart group that are on the same page. They know what is at stake. A lot of those guys were there past Super Bowl teams, so they know what time it is.
Right. All right. I do want to get to the last game of the weekend, which was the most competitive and entertaining. The Philadelphia Eagles going up 14-0, which I don't know that anybody anticipated was going to be the case in New Orleans. The Saints offense could not get untracked. I mean,
that's when I knew you were sensitive. You try to be like, "Oh, this game was, huh? What do you think about this game? Crazy game." And I didn't respond.
No, but I mean, it was also that was in reference to the Patriots beatdown of the Chargers too, which I don't think we necessarily.
I know, but I knew that's what you were referring to, though.
Yes, that what inspired me to text you.
Actually, no, you texted me Friday. You said, "Hey, let's hop on a call today," at it was at noon. I didn't say anything at noon,
right?
And then you texted me yesterday late.
Yes.
Hey, let's talk about Sunday.
Yes.
And I didn't say anything.
Yes.
And then today,
so the
crazy Sunday. You're like, hey, crazy things happening today.
I'm like the stalker girlfriend. No, so for those who may not understand why Will is going through our text messaging, it's because before we hopped on to record the show today, I said, "Are you mad at me or something?" And he accused me of being either insecure or sensitive or both. I think you said you're insecure and sensitive. And I said, I'm not insecure. I'm definitely not insecure. Now,
I took
sensitive.
that back. I took insecure back.
Yes, I am sensitive. And so when I'm texting a guy 2 or 3 times and I get nothing back, I'm kind of curious, like, okay, did I say or do something wrong? And for those who are listening out there, one of the other things we're discussing is the show is obviously called Bucher and Blackmon, but it's a subsidiary of Bucher and Friends. All of the logo and the sort of the advertising of the show, big picture, is Bucher and Friends, and we're trying to figure out a way where people can know that Will is not just a guest on this, that he is a co-host. That's why I was joking. Did Sean McVay congratulate you on your great podcast? But then maybe he doesn't know that you have a podcast because we're not advertising it in the right way.
That's why he didn't get back to me in time. He's like, "Oh, you have one? I didn't know you had."
So for everyone out there who's listening, this is Will's show as much as it's my show, okay? And we're going to find a way to be able to promote the show in that vein, because I'm not blowing you smoke. This is what I really love and appreciate in having you as a co-host is I think your analysis is second to none. I think your storytelling is terrific. And I think that one of the reasons why this podcast, the numbers continue to rock it, and they have, and I thank all the people who are making that happen out there. Is, I think people are becoming aware of what a good storyteller you are, and the special insight that you're able to give into these games, and you do it in a fair, fun way. So.
Don't try to butter me up so I can respond to your text. I see what you did there. You are slick. You are slick.
I do have.
But thank you though.
I have a teenage daughter, so I'm learning all of her tricks. Yeah, she's pretty good that way too. In terms.
Oh, our 4-year-old, she's already like that. She'll Shauna would be like, "Hey, Jade." My wife, Shauna, she'll tell our daughter, Jade, you want to go to the store with me? And Jade usually wants to go. And she's like, no, I want to stay home. And Shauna, my wife, is like, oh, I'm going to be so sad. I'm going by myself, try to trick her to go.
Right.
And she's like, Jade says, this is my 4-year-old daughter, our 4-year-old daughter. She's like, Mommy, it's okay, because God will be with you.
Oh. That is awesome.
That's awesome. And that is drop the mic. What can you say?
So I'm about 10 years ahead of you on the daughter front. My daughter, for the first time today, drove with her driver's permit with me in the passenger seat. Yeah. And
I can wait for those days.
It was pretty cool. She's a very good driver. This is how much better her game is in conning me than my son's. So my son, this was a great day for me because I spent the morning with my daughter. I spent the afternoon with my son. We went and surfed, but so I asked him if he wanted to go with me, and he goes, well, let me check with my friends. Right. And so a couple of his friends were going surfing too. So we went to meet them, and he says to me at one point, he goes, hey, Dad, aren't you excited? We're gonna go surf together. And I go, Matt, you're going because your buddies are going. If it was just you and me, I'm not sure that you would be going with me. And he was like, no, that's not true. Da, 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 da. And then I said, okay, well, in that case, I said, let's go to a different surf spot than they're going to.
There you go. Exactly. Wait.
Silence.
Yeah.
But Dad, they said they're already there, and they said it's really good. And I said, Matt, I piqued your game. Okay.
Just say what it is.
Exactly.
Just tell me what it is.
So then he does have a conscience. So he goes, Dad, next weekend, it's just you and me. We're going to go surf. I go, okay. All right.
There you go.
All right. So before we wrap this up, I do want to get your take real quickly on this, on the most competitive game. And we'll talk more about this game in the next podcast. But what do you make of the fact that the Saints in the Dome had to come back? And do you think ultimately that the right team won because of the Eagles had a shot there at the end? And Alshon Jeffrey, the normally incredibly reliable Alshon Jeffrey, is the one who has a pass slip through his hands and it ends up being intercepted. How do you gauge that the Saints survived this game?
I think the better team won. I think the right team won. However, this game was going to be more competitive, obviously due to the fact that this was a revenge game for Philly after getting beat down earlier in the year. But I truly thought, wow, Nick Foles might do it again. Yeah, I did. I said,
I think he wanted the Rocky statue replaced with a Nick Foles statue.
If Nick Foles happened to take them all the way and win the Super Bowl again, Rocky statue is getting replaced. I will put a petition out. But that's why, my analysis for this game, I was like, this is no disrespect to Carson Wentz, but I thought if Carson Wentz was the quarterback, I easily would have picked the Saints to win.
Interesting.
However, with Nick Foles, it's because I wasn't so sure, because we've seen it before with Nick Foles. We've seen him do it. We've seen him carry a team and go win the Super Bowl. So that's why with the fact that it's him, his energy, his aura, whatever it is, it's the Nick Foles factor, whatever it is. So I couldn't easily just pick the Saints. But they played them hard. They played them tough. But the better team did win today.
How surprised were you that it started the way that it did, with Breeze getting picked, trying to go deep, and Philadelphia just putting points on the board, like, with no problem? And then, conversely, that was it. The Saints shut the door on them in the second half. I mean, that was as impressive as it was curious that they were as susceptible as they were at the start of the game.
Well, yeah, Philly came out excited, so they had their game plan. This is what we're going to do, and they did it. And then, the Saints just pumped the brakes, said, oh, hold on. They said, hold on here. let us get adjusted and let us get back to what we do.
Yeah.
And what do? We convert to Michael Thomas. We run the ball and throw it to Kamara. And we run it with Ingram once we get ahead. And that's exactly what they did.
Okay. This is really speculative. And I don't even know. That's maybe it's a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What the Saints did to the Eagles is what when the Patriots came out and kind of blew the doors off the Chargers early. I was hoping they could just get to halftime and then maybe make adjustments. And we'll never know because at 35-7, I don't know what against the Patriots, that's just a bridge too far. If the Chargers could have kept this a 1 or 2 score game, or let's say a 1 score game.
Right.
Do you think?
Let's say if it's 14-7 at the half.
Yes, if it was 14-7 at the half, do you think we would have seen a competitive game? Do you think that the Chargers could have made halftime adjustments and made this, like, everything would have been different? As we know, you're up by 28 points, you can play different. And conversely, if you're down by 28 points, you have to play different.
The second when they were down that much, they came out the second half desperate. Like, we have to hurry up. We have to do this. When you start saying I have to, that automatically puts stress on what you're going to do. But
it kind of plays into the Patriots' hands in particular.
It does, exactly, because the Patriots, they didn't let up.
Yep. No,
they said, yeah, you can keep trying, but we're going to keep putting our foot on your throat. But if it was close, if it was 14-7 at the halftime, I feel like the Chargers would have had more. The morale would have been better. Like, okay, we're only down 7. We're only down 7. Yep. Instead of like, all right, we're down 28, guys. We gotta figure this thing out. That's why Phillip took a lot of chances. He threw a lot of deep balls that didn't get completed. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, when you do that and you don't run the football because you have to try to hurry up and catch up. And then when Patriots get the offense back, they're going to run the football. They're going to chew the clock up and then end the game.
All right, that's it for this episode of Bucher and Blackmon. Don't forget to follow Will on Twitter at Will Blackmon and me at Rick Bucher. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. I want to thank all of you for the ratings that you're giving us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Screenshot that review. You're just clicking stars. If you click the stars, you shoot us a snapshot of that to at Bucher Friends. You'll be in line to win some free prizes. In our next podcast, we will not only forecast and project and prognosticate on the championship games next weekend, but I also am going to ask Will about the motivational move that Sean Payton made with the $225,000 in cash, in bricks that he brought in, along with the Lombardi Trophy, and said, if you want to win this, go out and win 3 games.
Three effing games.
3 effing games. I look at that as being a mistake. And I want to get Will's take on whether he agrees, and I will explain why. All of that in the next podcast. In the meantime, thanks for listening.